Hey everyone, today we are going to be talking about multiplying and dividing integers. Just like with adding and subtracting, there are specific rules for doing multiplication and division with positive and negative numbers. We already know this one and this one because it's what we've been doing our entire mathematical lives at this point. So all that positive multiplication and division that we've been doing still applies. But now we're adding this idea of a negative times a negative or divided, right? Negative divided by negative. And then we've got positives and negatives together. So positive divided by negative, negative divided by positive, positive times negative, negative times positive. So a negative times a negative and a negative divided by a negative are both going to come out positive. So if I have two negatives, they become a positive. If I have opposite signs, so a negative times a positive or a positive times a negative, those answers are going to come back out negative. And then down here, it says Mrs. Watson's sevens trick. So what I do is I draw a 7 out of plus signs. So it's 3 straight across. You come 1 down and then down the angle. So it looks like a 7. Okay. And then we're going to fill in the remaining spaces with negatives. So you can see the 7 made out of plus signs and then those two little triangles made out of negatives. And that basically reinforces the rules that we show up here. So this is your positive times or divided by a positive, and that's going to equal a positive. And then this one is your negative times or divided by a negative, and it equals a positive. And the pattern just continues down through the image. So I actually learned this trick right here when I was also in 6th grade. And it is something that I used all the way through high school and sometimes even through college, just to remind myself to make sure that my signs were correct. The last little hints that we have up for you over here are when you are multiplying or dividing multiple factors. So if there's more than 2 numbers that you're multiplying or dividing, if there is an odd number of negative factors, so there's 3, 5, 7, 9 negative factors, your answer is going to come out negative. If you have an even number of negative factors, so if you multiply a negative times a negative, or there's 4 negatives, or there's 6 negatives, that quotient or product is going to come out positive. So there's a couple examples down here where you're multiplying or dividing more than 2 factors. And we will be able to decide the sign of those things based on how many factors there are of what kind of sign. So down here, we're just going to use the rules. So I'm going to keep my 7 showing here so I can see it. So 5 times 4 is 20. A positive times a negative is a negative 20. This one, I've got a negative, a negative, a negative. So there's 3 negatives. So my answer is going to come out negative. 10 times 2 is 20. 20 times 4 is negative 80. This one, I've got 2 negatives. So my answer is going to come out positive. 2 times 5 is 10. Times 3 is 30. Positive times a negative is going to be a negative 15. A single negative means that my answer is going to come out negative. 2 times 4 is 8. Times 5 is negative 40. 4 negative signs means my answer is going to come out positive. 4 times 2 is 8. 8 times 10 is 80. 80 times 2 is 160. Here I've got 2 negatives, so it's going to come out positive. 50 times 2 is 100. Here I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 negatives, so my answer is going to come out positive, and all of those ones being multiplied are going to be a 1. So there's my multiplication. So now I'm going to look at division. A negative divided by a negative is going to be a positive 6. Positive 42 divided by negative 7 is going to be negative 6. 81 divided by negative 27 is going to be negative 3. Negative 240 divided by negative 80 is going to be positive 3. Now, these ones that are written as fractions, you guys have asked me before at times when we've written our fractions why I associate the negative with the top. This content gives you a better understanding of why I do that. So here you can see that the negative 14 is on top. This is the same as saying negative 14 divided by 2. And negative 14 divided by 2 is going to be negative 7. When this negative is out to the side, it just means that the fraction itself is negative. So I can put that negative on top, or I can put it on the bottom, but I can only put it in one place. This is why I put it on top, because then when I read the division, it's negative 63 divided by 9. And that's negative 7. Number 15 shows a negative in both places, so that's negative 250 divided by negative 5. So my answer is 50. And then this last one is the opposite of whatever this division is. So this is going to be the opposite of negative 280 divided by negative 40. I'm going to do this first because it's inside the parentheses. So this is going to be the opposite of 7. And the opposite of 7 is negative 7. And this would be very similar to having 3 negative signs. So the answer comes out negative. 2 negative signs, the answer comes out positive. 1 negative, so it comes out negative. 1 negative, so it comes out negative. Okay? So those are the rules for multiplying and dividing integers or multiplying and dividing with negative numbers. This 7 trick is probably going to be super helpful. So I would remember to draw that on your paper and then to keep in mind these odd and even number of negative factors when you're doing your multiplication or division.